Hey guys, welcome back. I don't really know what to call this video. Successes I've had with my plants lately due to things I've been trying out that have resulted in nice leaf growth, kind of favorites video. So basically I had a lot of things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to kind of do a video on things I've been learning this year about plants because it's spring and it's kind of the time to be trying new things. Plants are growing, they're more receptive to nutrients, there's more light and warmth, whatever. That's the general gist of the video. So some of these are going to be like updates on plants you would have seen before and how they're doing right now. Some are just things that I'm learning because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. Anyway, it'll just make more sense as the video goes on what this is, but it's just things that have been working for me lately. Let's just call it that. By the way, I hate my braid today. Like straight hair people problems. If this is the first thing I wanted to talk about is not really an update so much as like a reminder to everyone to get your plants on poles. I'm gonna link Charmaine's lazy moss pole video down below. And I have shown this plant before, but this is my philodendron Florida Beauty. Why am I so out of breath? So this I showed in my easiest houseplants video. This is the fully hardened leaf that had just emerged when I filmed that video, and it's gotten a bit bigger. This is a plant that I struggled with sizing up, but this is the first leaf since getting on this pole, and I showed this already as well, but it's really well rooted in here. It's just really appreciating the pole, and this style of pole, honestly you guys, if I had started growing plants using this pole years ago, I think I would have had a lot easier of a time. I've been kind of like just phasing out all of my like regular mesh moss poles lately. I made a video on the D-shaped moss pole, and since then I actually haven't made another one, just because like there's no reason to do that pole over this pole, really, to me. So this has been so easy to keep watered as well, because I just like take my sprayer and I just aim it here, like here-ish, and then it just kind of runs down the back. The plastic keeps all the water enclosed, so it doesn't dry out as fast, but also it's much easier to get wet, because once it's like dry and hydrophobic, if you were to try to wet a traditional moss pole that's like open on all sides, it would just kind of run down the sides into the substrate. So I just like basically I water all my plants from here and let the water drain into the substrate. It's been working so well, and it's been growing so much faster since being on this pole. The newest leaf is emerging already. I'm just excited to see this start to mature this season. So this is not really much of an update because I showed this fairly recently, but just a gentle reminder to get your plants on this style of pole. I'll also link the plastic that I use in the description because a lot of people ask for this. It's a good size. I get the legal size, so you get a longer sheet, so you can make taller poles with it, but I don't know if you can get anything longer than 17 inches. So yeah, friendly reminder, start switching things over to lazy poles, get things onto poles so you can really see them glow up this season. Next little update, it's not like so much of an update, but I guess it's kind of an update. This is this plant I showed in one of my leaf favorites, and it's also like one of my all-time favorite plants in my collection. So this is my, I always want to call it a philodendron frydek. This is my Anthurium frydek. This is my alocasia frydek. I showed this before. It had gotten so root bound in the smaller glass jar I had it in, and it had roots coming out the top and just like not even in the substrate anymore, and it was very like crowded at the bottom of the jar. So I finally found something bigger to put this in, so I upsized the pot. So it's happily rooting in there right now. I knew it wasn't really happy in the previous pot being that root bound. So my understanding of alocasias is that they do kind of enjoy being root bound, because why else would they like root so crazy every time you upsize their pots? Like they just shoot out a ton of roots just to fill up the whole pot. So my understanding is that like they want to feel snug in their pot before they start to grow a little bit quicker. But it was obviously not very happy because it had been growing super steadily and quickly up until that point, and then it just kind of stopped. After I moved it to this pot, it switched from growing leaves out of the petiolar sheath to a caterpillar, and this new leaf just emerged. I'm just gonna gently show you. Look at that. It's maybe a little too white, but I'm very excited for this leaf because it's already about the same size as the leaf before it. These leaves expand a ton as they're hardening off, so this one's gonna be quite a lot bigger, and that sinus is a lot deeper with more of that like kind of scallopy edge. So I'm very, very excited about this. I just kind of like wanted an excuse to show this plant again because it's been really, really, really good to me. It's finally dropped its first leaf just now, so I've already pulled it off. It already completely like browned and crisped off. So this is the second leaf it's dropping, but that's okay, we're sizing up. Yeah, just a quick little update on him because look how beautiful. Next plant, I also showed in a recent video. This was in my easiest plants video. This is my Hoya Nicholsoniae New Guinea Ghost. So at the time when I showed it, it had just grown these three leaves. So 1, 2, and 3, and this was the original leaf on the cutting that I got from Jing. This plant is putting out 7 new leaves right now. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see them all, so let's see. There's 3 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then at the top 6, 7, and the vine is extending right here. I promise you there are 7 leaves coming out right now, and none of them seem to be falling off so far. This is an offensive amount of growth, and this is what I'm talking about with the New Guinea Ghost. Like all the stories that people tell about this Hoya being an insanely fast grower, like here is proof of that. It's going to be an absolute bush very soon. I'm really, really excited. I haven't done anything really different to it except for one thing I'm going to be mentioning shortly, but it's been in the same pot. It's been rooting in here. I try not to repot my Hoyas so much unless there's like something wrong with what they're in, because I find that repotting really does slow down their growth. So like if you're looking for a Hoya to get this season, the prices on these have dropped quite a bit, at least from where I am in Vancouver. And I think in the States as well, the prices have dropped because like they just grow so fast. I don't think the prices were ever gonna be remain as high as they used to be. But this is probably a really great Hoya to get because it's like it's just interesting to watch it grow, and also you can like propagate it and sell cuttings of it, which is just good, just a good investment. I think you can definitely make your money back with this Hoya. So this has been living in my Hoya cabinet and it's been really liking it. It's pretty close to the grow light because I do want to stress the leaves a bit more to get that purple tint that I really love on this plant. Okay, so this next thing, I've been holding off making a myco video for a really long time just because I don't want to come across as some sort of wannabe mycologist, and there's just too much that I don't know, and I wanted to study it a little bit more before talking about it. I've been using myco in my plants for not even very long, like a year and a half or something like that. I just noticed immediate effects pretty much within the first few weeks of using it. So I've been recommending it a lot and people have asked me to talk more about it, but I do want to do a little bit more research so that I have a better understanding of what they do, because if any of you have watched that Netflix movie that came out last year, Fantastic Fungi, The Magic Beneath Us, that's a really, really beautiful movie. It's a really beautiful movie and I highly recommend it to anyone who's just kind of like wants something beautiful to watch. Like, you know, like if you like Planet Earth, things like that, it's a really nice movie to watch, but it also like really opened my eyes to how complex fungi are and like how beautiful and mysterious and almost like otherworldly they are, and they're just so magical. And so lately I've been spending a lot of time in traffic. I've been doing like a different commute to work as like my kind of the projects that I'm working on are slightly different. So I started to listen to podcasts in the hopes of like learning more about mycology and just kind of figuring out like what I know and what else there is to know about mushrooms. And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, when I'm talking about I'm talking about mycorrhizal inoculants that I use in my plants, and how fungi or certain species of fungi are able to form this symbiotic relationship with plants, where plants and fungi have this like mutualistic exchange, where the plant will provide fungi with sugars and carbohydrates mainly, and sometimes fats. And then the fungi will kind of go out into the substrate, forage for nutrients, break things down that the plant's not able to break down, and then deliver that back to the plant. There's just this exchange of nutrients that's mutually beneficial. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about myco. So like I've been listening to these podcasts and they're just absolutely fascinating. I'm going to be linking a couple of my favorite ones in the description. I've been listening to a lot to the Mushroom Revival podcast, and they have different mycologists on the show. It's really great because they also have guests on the show who don't come from a scientific background, but it's really nice to see that mycology can be accessible to people who, like me, who aren't from a scientific background, and you can appreciate but also learn the same things. And there's like so much information accessible to us to learn more about mushrooms. One of the things I just learned is that like mushrooms are not plants. I feel like this is a basic thing that probably a lot of people know, but I didn't know, is that like mushrooms, fungi, their own kingdom. I knew that, but I thought they were really like closely classified as like they're more plants than animals, but it turns out that they're actually a lot more like animals than they are like plants. They don't photosynthesize, they breathe in oxygen. It's like the inverse of what plants do. They breathe in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. The way that they take up nutrients is like plants photosynthesize and make their own food, but fungi kind of dissolve food around them and then like absorb those nutrients, kind of like eating food. So they can't create their own food the way plants do. But anyways, there's so many cool things that I'm learning about fungi. It made me realize that like any sort of myco video that I might make or never make is so far away, because I just don't know enough about fungi, but I'm learning a lot right now, and I wanted to just kind of like share like the key things I've been learning that have been applicable to my plant growth. I don't remember which podcast this was. This wasn't one of the Mushroom Revival podcasts, but there was somebody talking about products that they use for that was a mycorrhizal / microbial inoculant, and the importance of microbes in your soil, they're talking about soil, but I've been using it outside of soil as well. Going from that, I've also like listened to other podcasts about how microbes and fungi interact and how they cooperate with each other to coexist in this like soil. It's like really fascinating because it makes total sense to me. Beneficial bacteria in your soil is, of course, would be a good idea, because if these beneficial bacteria that's like going to be breaking down dead matter and then turning those into nutrients for your plants, if they're out competing the harmful bacteria that's causing root rot and things like that, of course that's going to be good for your plants. So that's been like an aha moment for me. So the product that I picked up, and I think if you're from the States, you're gonna have a lot more options than I do, but this was one of the few that I could find. This is called Great White. It's by Plant Success Revolution. This was quite expensive for how much is in here, but I've been using it really sparingly because knowing that the fungi and the bacteria are going to multiply, I've been pretty sparing with how much I use. So this is a blend of fungal strains as well as microbial strains. There's no description. There are a whole bunch of mycorrhizal strains, endomycorrhizal strains, as well as bacteria. So there's like, I don't know how many strains of bacteria, 13 different strains of bacteria, a ton of different mycorrhizal species. Another one that's in here as well is trichoderma. So 2 different species of trichoderma. And trichoderma, I'm learning, is kind of a beneficial mold. So up until now, I've been using an inoculant that is just mycorrhizal. This one I wanted to try out because there is microbes in here. I wanted to introduce that to my plants, but also the nice thing is that this is, you just dissolve this in your watering can and you water all your plants with it. So I just this was easy for me to start using because I just put it in my watering can and then went through and watered my plants. I didn't have to do it during a repot. One other thing I've been learning through the podcast, and I don't remember which episode I learned this from, it might have been mentioned a whole bunch of times, but it's that if you want to encourage the strongest bond between your plant and the mycorrhizal fungi, is that when you're inoculating, you should ensure that up until that point, you're slightly under fertilizing your plant. And this is because in order for those spores of fungi to germinate, your plant needs to produce what's called root exudates. So they produce, I don't even know what it is, but it might be like certain nutrients or enzymes, or I'm not really sure what it is exactly on a chemical level what it is, but your plant is responsible for germinating those fungal spores. And if your plant is very well fed, it's not going to feel the need to send these exudates out to germinate those spores. Kind of underfeeding your plant is important to ensure that they form this bond. So up until now, I've been kind of telling people to make sure you fertilize your plants. Otherwise, like if there's no nutrients for the fungi to deliver to the plant, then what's the point of this relationship? But I'm starting to learn that there's like a spectrum of what you should do to make that relationship the most beneficial. And you need to kind of trigger your plant to feel like, okay, I need help. I need someone to help me with the nutrient delivery. Yeah, so that was one learning. So I've been doing a lot of Anthurium repots lately. I've been transferring some Anthuriums from moss into my pond mix because they've been not very happy. So going off of this mycorrhizal inoculant thing, I've introduced that to a lot of my Anthuriums. Some of them I kind of inoculated after a repot, and I'm not kidding, like they're all just immediately putting out new leaves really soon after a repot. So the first one I want to show you, okay, so this is a really ugly plant. This one is one of my forgetii. This is actually the mother plant to the seedlings that I pollinated. And it's been really sad. I'm not surprised that it looks so sad because it was quite a young plant and a fairly recent import when I pollinated it, and then it produced berries. So like it was really spent of a lot of energy, but it was up until now in moss and it was drying out pretty frequently. I would always just find it like super like drooped over. I'd water it, it perked back up. And so I was like, okay, I'm just stressing you out too much. I'm gonna put you in soil where it will just stay a little bit moister for longer. And then I inoculated it with this and it immediately popped a leaf without even like focusing on root growth. It's just like, it's been so much happier. It wasn't even that it was like a leaf was ready to come out when I was repotting it, because I tend not to repot plants when there's a emergent leaf. So this wasn't even like ready to come out. It just like blasted out as soon as I inoculated that and moved it to soil. So this was like one of the uglier ones, but I wanted to show that. So my Anthurium veitchii, this is my narrow form one. I've talked about this being a really slow grower. It's been dormant for quite a long time. I think this leaf maybe came out like late last year, around Christmas time, I want to say. And then within a few weeks of inoculating it, we have a new leaf emerging. So this was not repot, this was just simply inoculated. And we got a nice ribby leaf coming out. So I will probably, I don't know, if I don't show this in a video, I'll definitely post it on Instagram when this leaf comes out. I'm just hoping for a size up on this plant, but it's responded really well to the inoculant. I don't think I've shown this plant on my YouTube channel. This is my Anthurium winlingeri. I got this plant about a year and a half ago. It's been a pretty slow grower for me. The most recent leaf that I had, oh, maybe I showed this in a plant tour or something, but it kind of hardened off like this. And I've been trying to feed it a lot more because I keep hearing that it's a really heavy feeder. So I have been doing that, and I've also inoculated it, and the newest leaf is much, much nicer. There's a significant size up, so I'll just put these two leaves next to each other. A nice big size up. I honestly didn't think this leaf was gonna turn out so big, because when it emerged, it was like this big. And the petiole was like really, really small from what I could see, but it's hardening off quite a nice size, and is finally getting a little bit more of that Windlingeri texture, a little bit. I'm semi-confident that the speed of the growth will pick up a little bit more. So that one has been loving it. This one is in like a very mossy, chunky soil with like a drainage layer at the bottom, just because I kind of wanted to let it have the feeling that it was kind of like growing in a tree. I don't know, that was my thought process behind that. That's another one that liked the great white. So this one, I don't remember if I talked about it being kind of sad and difficult to grow. This is my Anthurium luxurians. So this used to live in mostly moss with some like coconut chunks mixed through. I've been having difficulties with this plant because all the leaves were doing this kind of thing. If you look here on the edge, it's like browning, but it's not dry. It's just kind of getting translucent and brown. And that always starts on the edge. It starts to yellow like this, and then it turns brown, and then eventually the whole leaf yellows. And it also has this like weird, like kind of resin looking deposit through the veins here. So I've lost all but this leaf on this plant. It obviously didn't like the moss. I don't know if it was fertilizer burn or pH fluctuations that it was really sensitive to. So I decided to move it to pon, and I've been moving a lot of my anthuriums to pon. I don't know if some of them are just more sensitive to pH fluctuations. I know that some of them are sensitive. I'm just not sure which ones are more sensitive than others. But I know also like that a lot of the substrate here, zeolite, especially with like some cationic exchange. Don't ask me exactly how it works. I just know that depending on the substrate, it can help stabilize the pH and act kind of like a buffer. So anyways, that was my thought process in moving this to pon. It's been a lot happier because the newest leaf is fully hardened and it's not showing that yellowing on the edge. It's looking pretty nice. So usually with the previous leaves, by the time it's hardened to the point of having that like bluish tint, it would start to be showing those signs of yellowing and stuff like that. So it's rooting nicely in the pon. There's another one poking out right here. So I'm really hopeful that the dark days are over for this plant and we can start to size it up and it'll be happier in the substrate. It's living in the same spot. It's just the big difference is that it's now in pon and it has the beneficial bacteria in there along with the mycorrhizal inoculant. So another plant that really loved the transition to pon was this one, which I'm going to call a papillolaminum. So this was sold to me as a papillolaminum crossed with Dressleri, but I'm hearing a lot of people identifying these as pure pappy. I'm just gonna show you the leaf here. It's really, really cute. This is still really tiny, as you can see next to my hand. It's been having a hard time sizing up. Up until now, it's been living in a mixture of moss and I think some coconut chunks, I believe, but mostly moss. That was the medium I rooted in when I imported it, and I just never really repotted it since then. Under the advice of Miss Jing, I moved this to pon because hers is super, super happy in pon. And obviously I inoculated it with the great white, and I'm not even gonna touch this leaf. This is the new leaf that popped out almost immediately. I wanna say within 2 weeks of inoculating, it started to emerge. And we have nice fat roots growing there and there. According to Jing, like once it's in pon, it's just gonna be blasting leaf after leaf after leaf. I'm excited to see this plant start to size up, but especially knowing that the potential rate of growth, I'm really happy to have this inoculant to make sure that there's enough deliverable nutrients to the plant and just give it enough of a boost so that it has everything it needs to keep sizing up, because I absolutely love this plant. I really hope to get this bigger this year, because this is maybe my favorite Anthurium in my collection. It's just very small. I just want to set this plant up for success. So if you have this plant, I don't know if it's like that available, but if you do have this plant and you're struggling with it, I highly recommend Pon, just based on my initial experience with this transition, but also how much Jings loves Pon. So one more time, just want to show you the different leaves. So this is the lowest leaf is this one. So this was grown after it died back to a stump during the last year's heat wave, and then this leaf came after that, slight size up. It still has the kind of texture that's slightly velvety, but also a little bit shiny, like the way a lot of juvenile Anthuriums do. This is the next leaf after that. A bit more dimension, a bit more lobe. Like the shape of the leaf is a bit more mature, but it's just minuscule. And this is the leaf that we're working with now. And it's not even fully like open yet. It's quite a lot bigger than the other leaves were. With this plant, I'm noticing that the leaves expand quite slowly, very similar to a luxurians. Like I find my luxurians, at least, like when a leaf emerges, it takes like a month to fully expand and harden. So that's kind of the experience I have with this plant. I don't know if it's like the lighting that I give it or whatever. Okay, last Anthurium update. It's not so much to do with Myco or anything. I just wanted to give an update on my little seedlings. So if anyone watched the video where I did a bunch of plant chores with the D-shaped moss pole construction, in that video, I took all my seedlings out of like that communal container they were growing in and then potted them individually. And how long ago was that? It was 3 months ago. Oh, that was actually quite a long time. Anyways, I'm gonna put some footage here of what they looked like in that video. And here they are now. I'm very proud of these. I mean, they're definitely due for a repot. I need to get them out of these little seedling trays. They probably don't look like much, but these are just one of the things that I'm most proud of in my plant journey so far, is that I had pollinated this plant with pollen from my friend JR's dark form forgetii. It produced berries. It really did a number on this plant though, like that energy that it took to produce the berries. People were telling me that because that mother plant was so juvenile when it was producing the berries, that it might produce a hybrid that is stunted and like never really like fully grows out. But so far it's looking pretty cute, and they're starting to get like that bullate dimension. All of them currently still are producing sinus, so they're not moving on to the peltate forgetii form. This one is probably the biggest one that I have here, and it's looking really dark. It has that like, it has a bit of that lime green venation. And then the emergent leaves have a bit of like a purple tint to them. I know like forgetii are like borderline common. I'm just really proud of this. So I'm very excited to see them get bigger. These are what the seedlings look like now. I'm waiting for them to kind of grow out a little bit more before I start to sell them. I just haven't decided which one, because I only have 17 of them. It was a very small inflorescence, so it didn't have a lot of berries. So this is all I have of my seedlings. Or maybe I'll keep them all and have a forgetii forest. I'm not really sure yet. So the last plant is an update from my import video. In that video, I imported a philodendron leinamii, and then I cleaned that stem up, and then I propagated it, and it was my first time using tree fern fiber as a substrate. I mix it with just like a scoop of my pond mix, which is mixed with coarse perlite and orchiata, and I'm happy to report that it's growing. That growth point, I noticed it was activated a few weeks ago, and then we got a good amount of growth since then. And then we have also juicy root coming out the side here. I don't know if there's anything else in this substrate, but I am very happy to report that the leinamii wasn't a nightmare to propagate. This is the only cutting that I have from that plant. It was just the leafless stump. How long ago did I chop it? I would have chopped it maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago, and I've only kind of re-moistened the substrate once since then with just like a light spray with my sprayer. It's sitting in my prop box. I am really enjoying this as a rooting substrate so far, and what people are telling me that's really nice about the tree fern fiber is that it doesn't stick to the roots as much as moss does, so it's a lot easier to remove the tree fern fiber from the roots compared to moss. So I don't know, I think I'm gonna be using this substrate a lot more with my Anthuriums. I'll probably be kind of sticking with maybe this mix or pond mix and soil with my Anthuriums. But I think I'm kind of like not loving moss as much for my Anthuriums anymore, just because I'm such an underwaterer these days, and it's just such a nightmare with Anthuriums. They've been, at least in my opinion, quite thirsty, and I just can't keep up with the watering, and therefore like the moss is always just like this dry, crunchy brick, and there's nothing more like disgusting to me than poking my finger into a pot and feeling that moss crunch. I hate it. It makes me feel really sad, and I'm sad for the plant, and it's just sad all around. So I think I'm gonna be using this substrate a lot more. If you're in the States, you'll find this more accessible. People I know or just order this on Amazon. But I also know that it's kind of hard to get in general compared to other substrates because it comes from New Zealand. So if you get them, try to reuse it as much as possible because it's not like a super easy substrate to get. Be sparing with it, I guess. Like I wouldn't mix this into my soil or anything. I would just use it specifically for this, and then once I move any plant out of it, I would just try to reuse as much of that substrate as possible. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been working on a lot with my plants lately. Putting things on poles, experimenting with microbial inoculants. Like we know it's a good thing, and like a lot of people use beneficial bacteria from their fish tanks. So this is really similar. I've been just trying to understand more about nutrients and how fungi interact with bacteria. Actually, one really, I started this outro and I'm just gonna talk more about myco. So one really interesting podcast I'm going to be linking is the market economy of mycorrhizal fungi. I made Charmaine listen to this with me in the car. I was listening to it for the second time, but it's absolutely fascinating how there's actually like economics involved in how fungi, bacteria, and plants exchange nutrients. They would actually trade nutrients with each other based on value, supply and demand. Fungi are known to hold on to nutrients to inflate value of it and just trade it off to plants when they're able to get more value of nutrients back. It's so interesting, and I highly recommend listening to this podcast if you're just like repotting or something like that. If you're stuck in traffic, it's been actually a lifesaver for me this past month because like there's so much traffic. I actually look forward to the traffic now because I just get to sit back and listen to these people talk about mushrooms. So anyway, that's it from me this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys are wanting to see in the future. I have a crazy busy month of May, and it's looking like early June is pretty busy as well. So I'm not sure how many like super long videos I'll be able to film, but if there's anything that I'm seeing a lot of requests for, I would like to prioritize those first and foremost. I hope you guys have a really great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.